Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Rebecca, and I am the event planner of Microsoft Reactor New York. Before we begin, I'd like to quickly review just 2 items. If you've joined us before, you might have an inkling to what these are. Our code of conduct: Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and our presenters. So we encourage engagement in the chat, but just ask that you are mindful of the commentary and just remain on topic. Feel free to let us know where you're joining from, though, and what you hope to gain from today's session. Our event guidelines: so this session is recorded. You're joining us from YouTube. It will be live on YouTube probably in the next 48 to 72 hours for on-demand access. If you have any questions, if you haven't done so already, just make sure that you're signed in. If you haven't created an account before on YouTube and you want to interact in the chat, you do need to, unfortunately, create an account so that you can use that feature. But feel free to drop questions, comments, let us know where you're coming from, what part of the world you're joining us from, because we cross-promote this session across the universe. And yep, if you need it, there's closed captioning available, just the CC icon on the bottom of your stream there. So today's session, I'm going to bring Gwen up here with me. Hello. Hello, hello. We're at it again.
Like clockwork.
Like clockwork. So this session is the 4th session of a 4-part series that we were running this month of October, Cloud Admin. This session is the 4th and last one, and it's covering Azure Virtual Machine Monitoring with VM Insights. If you didn't join any of the previous ones, I'll drop into the chat the link to the on-demand playlist and also our event calendar, just so you can see what those are about and, you know, potentially check them out if you haven't already. And then if you haven't done so yet, I dropped into the chat as well our check-in. It just takes you to our Reactor webpage. You check in, you enter that code 14514, and you get some resources. So Gwen's going to be using a GitHub repo. Learn module is where she's referencing some of this from. And that's that. I'll stop rambling.
Thank you. As always, a fantastic introduction. Hi, everyone. Chat, don't be shy today. Let me know where you're checking in from. Hi from New York. I've heard like so many ambulances today. So if you hear some in the background, that's just the soundtrack of Manhattan. But anyway, let me switch actually to this first because I have to organize my screens. I didn't have stuff ready up. Today we are covering, hold on, let's move this over. Rebecca mentioned we have there we go. Yep, there we go. sorry.
I felt like a DJ.
Sorry about that. Today we are doing some introduction to monitoring, specific to virtual machines, but we're going to cover monitoring in general. Let me know if you've ever used Azure Monitor. There's like built-in monitoring in literally every single Azure resource that you have. We'll take a look at that in a second too. But yeah, Rebecca mentioned there is a check-in link, so you can get the link to this GitHub repo. This is more of like a summarized version, sort of my show notes for the session, but it's written in a way that you can just read it as, it's not just like scattered notes. And it's based on these links that I have up here, which you can dive into and learn more about once you're in there. So yeah, do make sure you check in so you can get that link. And, okay, yeah, so today we're actually going to start by deploying some stuff first. When it comes to monitoring, you have to use this thing called a log Analytics Workspace. And since we're using virtual machines for this specific session, we're going to create 2. And the process of onboarding virtual machines to log Analytic Workspaces takes about 10 to 15 minutes. And I don't want to sort of do theory and then deploy VMs, workspace, and then onboard VMs, and then just have like 10, 15 minutes idle time. So we're going to get that done at the beginning, try to explain as much as I can. We'll dive into some theory, then we'll dive back into the workspace and do some querying and stuff like that. So we can start with that. Now, if you've seen any other of my other sessions on this specific series, I've used the desktop CLI, right? So just Windows Terminal. I'm going to try to use the Cloud Shell today. Sort of a common theme with my demos is I have an error in every single one of them. So today's probably not going to be the exception. I haven't used the Cloud Shell in a while. I know it works well, so let's see how this goes. We're using CLI over PowerShell. That's just a preference thing. PowerShell will work just as well. It's just a different syntax and such. So keep that in mind. CLI is just my preference, really. First thing we're going to do is create a resource group. As you know, in Azure, everything must live inside of a resource group. Frankly, I really, really appreciate that we use resource groups with Azure. I know like GCP has like projects. I think they're called projects, where the division is like the actual UIs. Like you can only see what's with the project. And then I don't think AWS has something as similar. But long story short, I really appreciate resource groups. So we'll create one. We'll call it workspace log demo. How about that? Yeah, there we go. East US 2. Fantastic. And workspace log demo. I'm going to try to, we'll just set that to workspace log demo dash resource group. So I don't forget. Let me just make sure that actually, there we go. Okay, cool. So I just saved it to a variable. RG is going to be it. Now the command that we're going to use to create a log analytics workspace is going to be AZ monitor. So the group's going to be monitor. Remember when you're using the Azure CLI, it all starts with AZ. So that's sort of like the way of you telling the CLI, like, oh, I'm using the Azure CLI, right? Because you could be using, like when you think of a terminal context, you could be using like really anything, right? We have a couple of messages. Valentin joining from Toronto. Oh, the 6. Hello, Toronto. And then we have Paul from Sydney. Hi, everyone. It's always nice to be in touch and contact with people from other places, right? So very cool. Learning cloud from around the world, right? All right, back to this command, AZ monitor. Next we have, I believe it's log analytics. I'm pretty sure, and then we have to create. Yes, create. I don't actually memorize these commands, contrary to popular belief. Like when you sort of become more familiar with commands as you use them more and more and things like that. But a lot of these have like so many parameters that it's hard to like remember them all. So I just hit enter. It's going to tell me which error, like what I'm missing. So AZ log analytics create is not spelled. Actually, let's just move the create then. And we'll see which one it is. Okay, AZ monitor log dash analytics. If we have a dash help, will it tell us what we're missing? See, I told y'all every time I do a demo, I have some sort of issue. All right, let's try this again. AZ monitor log analytics. If not, we're gonna end up doing this in the portal. Log analytics create. I believe it's create. It's not create. Okay. Let's do. If the dash help didn't work, would it be just dash help? No. Okay. All right. We'll pull up the Windows terminal and we'll go from here. Wow. It's always something when it comes to the CLI that I've been running into issues. So let me minimize this. That way we can go full screen here. Okay, so we have our resource group.
Teachable moments.
AZ monitor. Well, I'm gonna at least show you how to work around the errors or such. AZ monitor log dash analytics, and then I know what I forgot here. You know what? I think actually if I go back here, we'll just do clear here, and we'll go in here. We'll do workspace. We forgot the sub command, and now we can do create. Fantastic. So now what we got to do, again, because I mentioned, so we need to first create a log analytics workspace. Then we're going to create 2 VMs and then onboard them, right? Create, and then we provide the resource group name, which we already provided, which is this variable resource group. And then the actual name of the workspace, we can call this workspace demo. I think that's all we need, right? Look, I said hello, welcome everyone. I'm just pulling up some comments that are in here while we wait for this to run here. Metal says hello, hi. Let me know where you're checking in from. I'd also like to know everyone's sort of experience with Azure monitoring or KQL, Custo, query language, which is used for, querying your logs and your data, and things like that, right? So do let me know what your current expertise is, or maybe you're brand new to Azure, because this is an introductory level session. But anyway, all right, so our workspace is created. So now what I'm going to do is create a VM. I did a session, was that our second or third session? I think it was our second, managing virtual machines with the CLI, creating, updating, resizing, SSHing, all that kind of stuff. So we covered this AZVM command in that session. It's like an hour long. It's on YouTube available, so you can go catch that. But AZVM create, and the resource group is going to be the resource group that we created. Location is going to be East US 2. You might ask, like, hey, if your resource group already has a location, why do you need to provide a location when you create a VM? Remember that your resources can live in different regions than where your resource group is. The location for your resource group, like that you define, it only means like the metadata is going to be there. And you do have to keep that in mind for compliance issues. But your resources can live wherever, right? I'm going to use ECUS2 because it's the closest to me. And when you're deploying things, it should be closest to your consumer, right? ECUS2, we're going to use the Ubuntu LTS image. And then in terms of the size, I don't really care. I'm going to generate SSH keys just in case I need. I don't think I will, but we'll do that. As you can create, I know we need group. We need a name. And we can call this like demo VM1. I think that's it. We'll do verbose so it shows us the output. All right, it's running here. Let's take a look at our comments. If we have any from Learn TV, please let me know by, West Virginia. Hello, West Virginia. Just found out your channel subscribed, looking into cloud, but may start with AWS, undecided. Oh, my heart. No, I'm just kidding. Though I, of course, work for Microsoft and such, when people ask me, like, which cloud should I get started with? You can't go wrong with the big three because there's plenty of jobs, plenty of community, plenty of content. But if you're still undecided after that, come learn some Azure. We have here with the Reactor, we have content almost I'm pretty sure every single day. Different time zones, all that kind of stuff, different topics, developer technologies, DevOps tooling, low code, no code, 365, all that kind of good stuff, right? So there's plenty to learn. All right, anyway, so this is where we're at now. We've created our workspace. We've created our first VM, and then I'm just going to create one more just so we have some extra data. We'll just call this VM2. I would explain this command a little bit more, but go check out that session. I dive into it a lot more. Okay, so we'll create our second VM, and then we're going to onboard both of our VMs to our workspace, and then we're going to let it collect data. I think it's about 10 to 15 minutes. We'll dive into the repo, which if you check in, you'll get the link to the repo. So do make sure you do that. Also, I have to make frequent water breaks because I'm recovering from having the flu for like 2 weeks. Okay. Anyway, we can actually pull up in the portal log Analytics Workspaces. And then we'll take a look at the one we created. I think what did we call it? Workspace log demo. I believe it's this one. And I think, is that large enough? I believe that's fine. If not, let me know. But what we're going to do now is sort of scroll down to the general area, and then workspace data sources. We'll talk about sources in a little bit, but we're going to click on virtual machines. And then on selector, we're just going to select this workspace. And we haven't onboarded any VMs yet, because this last one is still creating, I believe. There we go. We could use the AZVM update command, but we're just going to do it from the portal itself. I'm going to open up one more. So what I'm going to do is virtual machines, go into here. Then I'm going to grab that demo VM1. And remember I was mentioning that every Azure service out there has like a monitoring aspect to it. And what I mean by that is if we scroll down to monitoring and like everything out there, like even if I go to, I don't know, let's say like functions, which is another service that I use a lot. If I scroll down, you're going to see that there's a monitoring aspect to that as well. Alerts, metrics, all this kind of stuff. So that that sort of blade in that left pane is Azure Monitor, and it's baked into absolutely everything. Same way like you have like access control or Azure AD baked into everything. And all of this data goes into Azure Monitor, and we'll sort of talk about that flow in a little bit. But I just wanted to mention, sort of like provide more context as to what I meant by that monitoring is into everything. All right, so let's go into the second VM. Well, actually, did we do the first one? No, probably not. Hold on. I don't think we did it. All right, we'll do demo 1. And we'll scroll down to monitoring insights, and then we have to click enable here, and then we just got to make sure we select the right one. And we got to use workspace demo resource group, workspace demo. Enable that. And then we could go into demo VM2, and then the same thing on the monitoring on the left side, insights, enable, and this is what we call onboarding a VM to the workspace. Workspace demo, resource group, fantastic, enable. And it actually tells us here how long it takes. But let's give it a second. I would actually prefer Azure, but AWS has such a huge chunk of the market. That's I guess that's a fair statement. I mean, statistics and don't lie. I think when it comes to like looking for sort of like what more like roles are available and such, or like what has like the most opportunities, you might benefit from going a little bit more granular. So like when I was getting into cloud, a lot of it was there was like it's very heavy Azure, and like at the time I was living in Connecticut, Azure had such a heavy presence there, so it worked out for me. But yeah, if AWS has the most in your area, go for it. At the end of the day, if you understand your fundamentals in cloud, picking up new platforms is more of like a syntax and service names kind of thing. Okay, so our first one, let's see. Our first one was added. Cool, and it gives us this message here that tells us it can take up to 10 minutes to arrive, right? So if we go back to we're going to keep that CLI open there just in case, though I don't think we'll need it anymore, but we'll just keep it there. We go into Login Analytics Workspace, and we scroll down here now to our virtual machines, and then we again select only this workspace. It's still not populated. I guess because it needs 10 minutes. All right, we'll give it its time. So let's head back into the GitHub README and talk a little bit more about the actual content, the theory behind these things before we dive more into the queries and the fun stuff. So what are Azure Monitor logs and Azure Monitor VM insights? So Azure Monitor logs collects and organizes log data generated from Azure resources. Log data is stored in a log analytics workspace. So you can think of like, so you have Azure Monitor that sort of sends all of this data. There's so much. We'll get into that soon. But in order for you to sort of start working with all of that data and those metrics, you have to organize it somewhere. So you can think of workspace like a folder, whereas like all of your data would be individual files. And if you want to start organizing it, you would need folders, right? So your workspace would be something like that. And then data living in the workspace can be queried for trend analysis, reporting, and alerting. And you can capture data like Windows event logs, Heartbeat logs, performance data, sys logs, and things like that. If there are any sysadmins watching now, you're probably very, very familiar with these types of logs. So it's like no different when it comes to Azure Monitor. And then Azure Monitor VM Insights is a feature of Azure Monitor that relies on the Azure Monitor logs, and it uses a specific table named Insights metrics, there's an S there. And then this table you can use to query data on performance and usage for your virtual machines. So what I was trying to get at earlier is, so there's like many native Azure tooling, and like I said, it's baked into every single Azure service. But when you think of Azure Monitor, it's sort of like the top level service, and it spans all the additional monitoring tools send data to it, right? So they're all underneath it. And then Monitor service collects and analyzes data generated from Azure resources, application, guest operating system, Azure resources, Azure subscription, Azure tenant. And then you can also create your custom sources as well. We'll take a look at a diagram that sort of displays that for us. Data collected by Azure Monitor is composed of metrics, so Azure Monitor metrics, and then logs in Azure Monitor logs. Metrics are lightweight numerical values stored in a time series database that can be used for near real-time alerting. And then we also have sort of logs that are sort of less structured and you can use for various types of data and have your own structure, right? So it's not that one is better than the other, it's really just depending on what you need. If we take a look at this diagram here, we have sort of all the sources where we can collect data. So application, operating system, resources, subscription, a tenant, and that would be like your Active Directory, your activity logs, and kind of things like that, and your custom sources. And then this would come into Azure Monitor, which is sort of the overlay. If I probably go one more, that would be a little better there. Yeah. So that would come into Azure Monitor as either a metric or a log, and then you, depending on like what you're trying to do, if you're trying to gain insight, you can, application insights, container insights, virtual machines, or build your own custom monitoring solutions. Or if you want to visualize using dashboards, workbooks, views, Power BI. Power BI is probably one of the most used tools out there when it comes to visualizing and reporting and data and stuff. Then we've analyzed with metric analytics, and then log analytics, which we're taking a look at a little bit later, which we've already done sort of the setup for. We can respond to metrics and logs with alerts. You might have alerts for like billing, budgets, or costs, or traffic, or whatever it might be. And then you can also auto-scale your infrastructure, which is one of the benefits of cloud computing, right? If you sort of don't have auto-scaling on for your virtual machine, you're really not doing it right. And then integrate logic apps, low-code, no-code solutions, and then APIs. You can sort of build a lot around these metrics and logs, right? In terms of planning a log analytics workspace deployment, if we look at this sort of scenario here, we have a one workspace, again, sort of like a folder where our data comes into. And it looks like we have a virtual machine and an Azure resource, some sort of Azure resource reporting to it. These individual white sort of rectangles are the tables that we're caring for or paying attention to when it comes to like querying data. So there's event, syslog, heartbeat, perf, which is the performance table, and then there's other tables. And then the resource itself looks like it's reporting custom logs, activity, diagnostics, usage, and other tables, right? So you have to because there's so many tables available, and we're going to see this in a little bit, you really have to pick what you care about and what you want people to access to, because it's all about sort of picking the right design. And you also have different levels of access control for collected logs. So if I showed you over here, we'll hit OK, and then you see this access control mode. It's using a use workspace or use resource or workspace permission. And what's that is telling us it's the level of access control that we've collected, right? So you have access mode, access control mode, and table level RBAC, or RBAC resource-based access control, which we also covered in the first session of this series. RBAC and Azure Active Directory and all that kind of stuff, very important to cloud administration. So access mode involves how users access a log analytics workspace, and plus you define a scope. Access control mode defines how permissions work for any given log analytics workspace. And then table level RBAC is more granular. So when you think of RBAC, you're thinking about roles, think about individual users and things like that. And you can define down to the table level of a workspace, sort of the access, an access mechanism for log analytics, right? And do keep in mind that the best strategy is to limit the number of workspaces for daily operations. Reducing the number of workspaces will make administration and querying easier and quicker. You might need to have multiple, but ideally you would have one and just sort of segment it out whichever way you need it to be. Because as you can see, sort of deploying a workspace, it's not like a quick, just creating a VM. It's a little bit more involved, right? So you don't want to have too many. Next, we can talk about agents. You might ask well, how does Azure sort of pull the data or send data from your resources, in this case virtual machines, onto how does it get back to Azure, right? Because when you think of a virtual machine, it's sort of its own thing. Yes, it's connected to Azure, but it's still its own little thing. And Azure does that by using agents. So compute resources in Azure require agents to help collect monitoring data inside of log analytics, and then higher level up, Azure Monitor, right? Each agent allows customers to measure performance, responsiveness, availability of guest operating systems, and a whole bunch of other things. So we have 4 at the moment. Azure Monitor Agent, which collects monitoring data from guest operating systems on virtual machines and delivers data to monitors via logs and/or metrics. So this is like the latest one, and over time it's going to replace the other ones. It does introduce new capabilities, but there are trade-offs because it doesn't support every single monitoring scenario. So you'll have to read up on that to decide if it's what you need or not. Then we have Log Analytics Agent, collects logs and performance data for virtual machines in Azure, and then other on clouds or on-premise. So if you're working with like a hybrid situation, multi-cloud, this one might be the right one for you. There's more sort of content here on the side that you can dive into if you'd like. I'm just going to sort of skip it so we can get to the fun demo part, right? Then we have Azure Diagnostics extension, which enables customers to receive extra data from guest operating systems and workloads living on compute resources. And then we have the dependency agent, which collects discovered data about certain processes running on virtual machines, right? And depending on sort of like which image you end up using, some of these things may need additional configuration or additional installations and things like that. But I picked the Ubuntu long-term support image, so we don't have to do any of that. All right, so let's go back into the workspace and see if our virtual machines, before we dive into like Kusto, has anyone used KQL or Kusto or things like that? Would love to sort of see where we're at in terms of that, right? I think it's quite if you've used SQL, or if you use maybe, I don't really think it has too much in common with PowerShell. I mean, there's the pipe in like also with like Linux, with like a Linux command line. There's a concept of piping, sort of sending the output of something into something else, like grep or cat or something like that. Yeah, but do let me know if you've used KQL before. So we're gonna back into the workspace. We'll refresh this first, and then we'll take a look at our virtual machines and see if it's been. We want to just look on this workspace. All right, so previously this wasn't here. So fantastic. It looks like our VM1 and our VM2 have been onboarded. So now if we go to the individual VMs, we'll go scroll down. We might need to refresh this. And here we go. So we're now in Insights, and you can see that we have sort of this. I'm going to have to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That view is way better. Thank you, Rebecca. So when we click into sort of monitoring and insights, I just hit refresh and then it populated the data that we needed. We get to see sort of our virtual machine. This is like this neat diagram kind of thing. And like we have Tux here. That's Tux, the Linux mascot, right? And then we got information of the VM, demo VM1, what operating system, what IP, and then we have sort of some overall like check marks in terms of like it's healthy, our machine properties and all that kind of stuff is in here as well. And then the Azure VM properties are as well in here. And it tells us quickly ports, processes, and all those kinds of things in here. The fun part comes when we scroll down and we go into, I believe it's logs. And here's when we dive into KQL. Before we dive into this, let me just catch up with the chat. Let's see. I think I always enjoy the when people start to sort of have conversation around the clouds. I think GCP, it's taking time, but will dominate a niche market at some point. And I think exactly, it's a good time to be alive in terms of cloud computing. Yeah, this is so much opportunity. No better time to learn cloud. That's what I always say. And we have a comment in the chat says. Valentine from Toronto says Azure is less expensive versus AWS, but AWS has some services, better services like Functions, Lambda, and other AWS SES. My 2 cents. Okay. an opinion on AWS versus Azure. Custo query language, is it different from SQL and Yeah, it is different. Because Custo is meant to be read only, so it's meant for you to like make queries to sort of pull data instead of, whereas SQL, you can be doing updates and all that kind of stuff, right? Concepts like querying from tables and using schemas and things like that are sort of shared, but it's not the same thing. Valentine says, I use Custo, but not a fan. Okay, that's fair. That's a fair comment. So anyway, we're in demo VM 1, and you know what? I'm actually going to pop into demo VM 2. I'm going to pull this one up too. Scroll down to insights and make sure it's been onboarded. Yes, it's been onboarded here. If we scroll down to logs, we're going to have sort of the same view of these two here. I have some info into Custo here, but if you go up, I believe I've added some. There's more information in this Learn module for KQL. KQL is one of those things that it's great to know, but also like with a lot of the demos and like the samples that you have in here, which we're going to dive into right now, it's easier to sort of like find your way, all right? But anyway, so on here we have queries sort of like depending on like topics you have or like what you're trying to get at. But we're going to scroll down to sort of find the ones that are related to, I don't know, resource type. Virtual machines, there we go. Let's pick one of these, really. Last heartbeat of each computer, recently stopped, virtual machine available memory, chart CPU. Let's run this one. So I just clicked run, really. And what's cool about this is it has all these comments already sort of populated for us. If you sort of develop or you script or PowerShell, Python, Bash, whatever it is, you are most likely familiar with comments and commenting your code and things like that. And all of these demos and these examples already have them built in. So we selected the chart CPU usage trend and calculate CPU usage patterns over the last day and chart by percentiles. To create an alert for this query, click on the plus. Oh, it even tells us how to create an alert over here. So this the important part when we start with KQL queries is sort of this first word here is the actual name of the table. And we'll go into more tables a little bit later. And then we pipe. So we grab the data from the table and we're piping it, which means we're just sending its output to something else where we're either going to filter, organize, or whatever it is, or provide some sort of like something that just like doesn't return us all the data. Like we want to pick it apart. So in this case, it's like, all right, so from the table perf, grab that data and then just show me where the counter name, so we have a column that's counter name, equals right here what's in these double quotes, right? And then from that, we have another pipe, so that means we're sending it through again, so filter again, and then where object name is processor. Finally, we're going to summarize the data by what we've defined here, or what was defined already by the query for us. And then we're going to render a time chart, which is just sort of like the output of it. And then if we run this, I haven't made any changes here. Oh goodness, what did I mess up? Did I fail to resolve table or column or scalar? I don't think I did anything wrong here. Oh, okay. That's odd. I just ran it again. This is most likely because this hasn't been running for too long, but you know what we can do? I have VMs that I deployed not today, so we'll take a look at that. You know what? Just go to virtual machines. Let's see. We'll take a look at probably this one might have some data. And then if we go into logs, and then we'll try to find that same one here. Nope, still no data. Okay. All right, let's pick another one then. Let's do. Oh, so this left side. Let me introduce you to schema. Schema is sort of a way of saying, like a group of tables. A schema. If you're familiar with SQL, a schema is sort of like you're grouping tables, but with some sort of logical. Like you're logically grouping tables, whether they have, I don't know, they're for the same application or for this, some sort of similar object or something like that, right? So your schema is going to live on this left side. And what's pretty cool about this is, let's take a look at like performance. So all these like individual ones are like individual line items are tables themselves. So remember that first word I told you is the table. Like, okay, where am I grabbing all the data from? Where am I querying the data from? That's that first line here, and that would be what you can select from this side. Let's select this. We'll do a new one, actually. We'll do heartbeat. I guess heartbeat. And then we'll just run that. So you see we're not providing sort of any piping, so we're going to get a lot of data in here too, right? If we wanted to do something like, I don't know, just count the number of entries in this one, we could just pipe it to count. Oops, I added an extra pipe there. We have 128 entries here, so there's more data in this one than, let's see, what do these other ones have? Let's go into here. Paste that. 17. Okay, so there's a big difference there. Right. So now let's try to pick a different. Let's see. Let's go into here. Let's close this one as well. Let's close this one actually here. We'll hit OK. VM. Let's go back to, where was it? Logs. And let's see. Virtual machine available memory. Find Linux kernel events. Uses of clear text password. What? That's interesting. Some of these I've like a lot of this is like new to me too. Not reporting VMs. Signatures out of date. Protection status updates. Computer with missing updates. Wow, this is great. There's like a bunch of really solid example queries in here. All right, let's do virtual machine free disk space. Let's do that. All right, again, lots of comments in the query itself. So again, we're using the performance table. We'll run this and we'll see what we get. What is going on here? No results from the last. Try selecting another. All right, let's do last hour. Are we in we're in VM1. Let's try this one, though I don't think it's. All right, let's try just a performance table and see what we're getting from there. Whoops. Performance. Nothing from the performance table. All right, it's probably not enough time, maybe. Who knows? We'll scroll down to Insight Metrics, which is sort of like the actual main topic of today. We'll grab the entire Insight Metrics table, and we'll run that one. Fantastic. And the cool thing about like the sort of portal version or the inside portal, like log analytics viewer, is that you can really filter things down to, all right, I only want to know computer ID and agent, thing like that. Or what if we wanted to, we'll say where computer, oops, there's too many spaces there. Computer contains, we're in demo VM, so we'll do demo VM1. Run that. And then we could do something like count to show me how many we have specific to demo VM1, because the scope itself is set to, I think it's set to the VM itself, but if we set it to like the entire workspace, then we hit apply, and then our schema changes, right? Because again, our schema, remember, is the sort of logical grouping of the tables, but that also applies to the scope. And then we'll sort of change this to not have any of this here. Then we'll run this here. And we'll see we have 659. Very different. Give me a second to check in with the chat. I want to move up. Schema is grouping tables with some structure. Yeah, so some sort of logical way, or reasoning for grouping tables is your schema, right? So that's everything on the left side. The left side here is pretty cool because you have if you sort of just like hover over one of these, you can favorite like a table, or you can sort of get a little bit more of like useful links, a description. Not all of them have descriptions. I think I've seen, like, for example, this one doesn't. This one has traffic for open server ports on the monitored machine. Well, that sounds fun. Let's try that one. We're going to read this comments too because it doesn't. And let me see here. And if we have some useful links to, will this link us to documentation? Oh, hold on. Getting a little tricky because of the zoom. Oh my goodness. We'll open another one. Let's assume that it's the same, and we can preview the data too. Ah, sweet. Yeah. So the goal with monitoring is, especially with like Azure Monitor and Log Analytics Workspace, is like you don't have to be an expert. Like you don't have to like create these queries from scratch. But it is of course useful to understand like how you can like put them together. Honestly, with KQL, like the biggest thing is to understand like you're grabbing your table first, and then you're just sending it through pipes to like filter down to things. Oh yeah, this did open up to like the actual documentation of that specific table. Really cool. And then you have all the tables on the left side. Fantastic. Let's go back to demo. Let's do VM1 here, like that, and we'll sort of like do another one now. Let's do computer. Let's do one of these to create an alert with. Track. CPU. What if we did here max instead of that? Run this. Do we get data here? Try selecting another timer. Still nothing. Interesting. Well, let's do find any kernel events here. Run. No kernel events. Track VM availability. No. Count heartbeats. Let's do this here. All right. So if for some reason we wanted to create a rule or an alert, or remember we mentioned that you'd auto scale your infrastructure if there's too much traffic, or if you're if there's no heartbeats in the past, I don't know, 5 minutes for a certain amount of time, for a certain amount of like executions or counts, then you would trigger something to happen. We get a new alert rule. You might be familiar with rules if you use like budgets or ARM templates and things like that, right? So in order for us to actually create this, we need the query itself, which we've just taken from the example. And then we would select what measure, aggregation type, and granularity. I'm just going to keep these to default. And then whenever it's greater than the threshold value, we can just say like, I don't know, 1 for like 5 minutes. We'll tell it to do something, right? The cool thing is it tells us the estimated monthly cost, $150. Your whole pricing around monitoring is going to depend on how much data is actually sent to the workspace itself, right? If you have like a bunch of resources into it, it's going to cost you more. Then we can go review and create. What do we need to create here? Hold on. Details. Oh, we need to provide a name here. Heartbeat, more than 1. Review and create. And then we can hit create, finally. We have one more. Fantastic. And then we've created an alert. And then with alerts, you can create sort of like automate things, auto scale things, all those kinds of things, right? That's pretty much like a really like quick overview of this. If we go to the repo, we have a little bit more of like talking about queries and stuff like that. But we've sort of covered everything that I wanted to cover in this, again, introductory level of monitoring. Let's switch over to a full screen, actually. Hold on. Full screen of me. I've been trying. Oh, hold on. There we go. Hold on. I've been trying to leave time at the end of these sessions for us to just like talk Azure, talk cloud, answer questions in general of the session and things like that. I think I got every question. Sorry. Let's see. Sorry to leave good company, but dinner time. Enjoy your dinner. Looking forward to catching future streams. Thank you for doing this GPS. My pleasure. We're here every week. Next, we're doing Spanish. So if there's any Spanish sort of Spanish first listeners or watchers, I guess, or viewers, not watchers, we have this same series. So this administration series is going to be completely in Spanish next month. So do keep that in mind. Being alive in terms of cloud and tech in general, imagine when 5G really kicks in gear. That's an interesting observation here. Anoop on Learn TV says, nice job, Gwen. Thank you very much. I appreciate the positive feedback here. Why is Learn TV not streaming in 1080 very blurry? I'm not actually sure what's going on there. I'm curious if that's an issue going on in YouTube as well. Chat, if you want to let me know, please do let me know. Besides that, that pretty much like wraps up this one. Rebecca, you got anything to add?
Of course, got my call to action for the audience out there in the world. So I'm going to drop into the chat our reactor survey. If you have the time, we appreciate that. If you fill it out, let us know who you, the audience, are, so that we can, for future planning. So the Microsoft Reactor program, it's free content brought to you by internal Microsoft employees, our wonderful network of partnerships, MVPs, RDs out there. If you're familiar with those terms, people that are passionate about a lot of the things that we're creating over here. And we work together to, make this all happen, but we want to know who we're making it happen for. So
yes, we want to know what you want to know.
Yeah. Right? So the survey asks things like, what level are you? Are you a developer? Are you like a student? Are you still, those sorts of questions, just to try to figure out, like, should we continue putting out beginner content, or should we be more focused on intermediate? So if you have the time, we appreciate you, and appreciate if you can drop, that out there. Hang on. Do you have the Git repo for the session? I thought I just shared it in the announcements. It should be there. Hang on one second. That's coming over from Learn TV. I'm pinning it to the top of the stream, so let me know if you can see that. And on Learn TV side, we're streaming to a bunch of different channels, so that also might be why things are coming through a little bit blurry.
They're asking for a code in that survey. Yeah, your code is 14514. It's actually on the side right now. I could grab some of these comments quickly. I'm actually learning Spanish. I would love to attend that. It's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you know the content in English, then, listening in Spanish is definitely going to be a way to learn another language too. 720p is all I'm getting on the YouTube end, I'm assuming?
Yeah, that's YouTube.
Is it blurry though? We'd have to look into that if it's blurry. Oh man, I'm late, but I'm still going to show support. Awesome. You could also catch the recording. Everything that we do not only happens live, but it's also saved after for y'all to watch. If you want to go like 2x speed, 4x speed. I actually don't know how fast YouTube goes, but you can speed it up, slow it down, whatever it might be. Because I know last time I was talking really fast because I was trying to fit the entire demo in an hour, and we sort of got, I wasn't able to finish everything, but anyway. I think it's asking no worries, I see it. No worries, I see what to do now. Okay, cool. Not blurry. All right. Then we're good.
Okay. Yeah, so Fantastic. If it's blurry on Learn TV, it'll be available on Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. You can revisit this content. You can check it out at a later date. I'm sure, if you are learning about all of these things, maybe it's helpful to take a peek back at it anyway. So sorry about that, but hopefully you still got the main parts of the message that Gwen was conveying with all of this. And yeah, if you are interested in more from the Reactor, especially like Gwen's upcoming sessions, let me actually, if we have a second here, which I think we do, I'll drop the link.
Coming up this month.
I'll drop the link. We've got some great stuff. Yeah, you've got some career talks.
We have some AI drone stuff. We got some Spanish cloud admin stuff. We got, there's another session. Some power platform stuff coming up as well. December, we got some more career stuff too. I think we're starting to get into this mode where we're like reflecting on careers and stuff like that, because it's the end of the year. It's like, all right, what do I want to like set myself up for success for the next year? So I want to introduce a lot of more career focused content for the end of the year. So that's coming. So do make sure you just, there all the links that you can sort of find us are there. Everything is always going to be free, of course. So yeah, don't worry about that. Look at this last comment here. Gwen, you're very positive and kind. Oh, thank you. I try to. We got fill out the survey quick and easy. Awesome.
Oh, thanks.
I appreciate
thanks, guys. Yeah. And I just dropped into it's the session the series that Gwen covered this month, again in Spanish. So I just dropped the link to her series page.
That's this one? Intro a la admin. I love that.
You have to think of a short thing to say, so that's what I did. Yeah.
I gotta go prep for that now next week. Oh goodness. All right. I think we've answered everything we could.
I think so too. We have a couple So many. There's a lot of compliments. I can't transfer them all over, but coming from Learn TV, thank you guys for joining us.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate that. Yeah, we're streaming across a couple different places, so running around. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. Take care. See you at the next one.
Boba tea.
Oh yeah.
Bye everyone.
Enjoy. Bye everybody.